Longtime viewers of this podcast may notice that we often bash Trump and Republicans, but I thought we would take a break from that this week and do some bashing of Democrats for not being harsh enough on Trump and Republicans. Welcome to Info Hazard. I'm Danny, and these are my co-hosts Phil and David.
Hello.
This week, I wanted to talk about a vote that happened in the House of Representatives that I saw almost nobody talk about, which kind of makes sense because it seems like it was uncontroversial. It passed the House 395-2.
It sounds uncontroversial.
I am, of course, talking about the same thing that everyone is talking about, the Protect Taiwan Act, as it is called. I found this really funny because what this act does is it empowers the President of the United States, acute viewers may remember that this is currently Donald Trump, to, if he feels that Taiwan is under threat from China, he can act to have the federal government try and kick out China from the international banking system within several different banking organizations. So I just found this. Yeah.
You don't like this? What do you have against Taiwan?
Yeah, so I'm sure that's what defenders will say. So actually, I was mad enough about this that I emailed my congresswoman. Basically, Democrats spent the entire week after the Pam Bondi hearing, especially talking about, he's a rapist, he's a pedophile, he should be thrown out of power, his antagonistic diplomacy is alienating our allies. All right, quick 5-minute break, guys. Let's all vote him some more power, and then we can get right back to it, right? Like, this is baffling.
Yeah, no, it is crazy. Like, there's got to be a way to address this issue without giving more presidential power, right? Moreover, doesn't Congress already have this power? That this is sort of within their purview to do? Like,
I'll be honest, I don't know enough about the fine details of the U.S. participating in these international banking organizations and the treaties that govern it.
Let's just imagine that under a normal president, this would be like a normal bill.
Right, but we're not under a normal president.
I know, let's just say that. Just given the normal things that the different branches do, this is typically how they would try to set up something like this, right? It's a pretty narrow authorization. It seems like a kind of reasonable thing to have in a bill. It doesn't seem like a crazy bill. The only objection is that, right, it's more power to Donald Trump. And okay, you can see how, right, so part of this bill is that, so he has the authority to declare and inform Congress that China has acted aggressively towards Taiwan, triggering these things. And he also has the ability to untrigger these things, to say, okay, actually, we've made some progress in some negotiations. Let's let them back into the G20 or whatever. So what's the badness here? Trump is always finding ways to use his power for corrupt ends. And so he could just say, hey, just send me $10 billion and I'll let you back into the G20 or something. And we don't need to worry about this whole little Taiwan misunderstanding. Just given the types of things that he's doing, it's it doesn't seem that much worse. I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is even Donald Trump might use this correctly, right? He might use it as intended.
Okay, but is that the standard that we should have for legislation? Is that in normal times this would be fine and Donald Trump might not abuse it? To me, Democrats should be allowing only the very minimum amount of government business to progress and should be doing all that they can to remove power from Donald Trump because he's using all of the power that he has. And instead, they're doing shit like this. What the fuck? The only people that voted against this were Thomas Massie and some Democrat I'd never heard of. So all of your favorite Democrats voted for this, Jasmine Crockett spent the entire week talking about how he's a pedophile and then voted for this, AOC voted for this. So if she runs for president and I vote for her, am I getting fiery socialist AOC or am I getting national security ghoul AOC who will vote for this even though it gives more power to the president, who's Donald Trump at the moment?
I don't envision the good case scenario for this bill. If this is an issue with this much support in Congress, if this comes up, if this exact situation comes up, wouldn't Congress just be able to write a law that does the exact same thing? They don't need to give a single person sweeping power to do this kind of thing.
And you might be oh, he has to act quickly, very rapidly. But this is banking, dude. It moves so slow. Even Congress can keep up with bankers, dude.
Does banking move so slow? If they need to immediately stop lots and lots of bank transfers, a couple hours could be meaningful. right?
Maybe,
I mean,
but like they should be making the case for that then. I don't know.
let's assume that this is actually like a normal way to implement this kind of a thing. A few weeks ago, you were talking about a proposed amendment for a military bill regarding Greenland that was sort of explicitly limiting Trump's powers to declare war on Greenland. Do you think that there's a chance that this part of what this bill does is by enumerating the president's powers, it also kind of limits them? Do you really see this as granting sweeping powers? I don't really see this as granting sweeping powers. The
Not sweeping powers, but it is granting him a new power, which, like, why are they granting him any new power at all, dude?
Right. But do you get what I'm saying? Like, for
Right.
example, like
Okay,
this,
yes,
it
but
does say that he will inform Congress, right?
yeah, but he'll inform them, not like that it requires their consent. He just has to let them know.
That's right. That's right. But he has notably not been informing Congress of some of his foreign actions lately, right? Like,
But also, like, this couldn't be done in secret, so he doesn't even need to inform them, right? They would just see that it's happening.
this could be done in secret.
No,
Some
it's
of it.
like these are like giant public banking organizations, dude.
Some of it could be done.
If you're saying, okay, this enumerates the powers, so if he exceeds those powers, then it will go to court, and then the court will be like, oh, you couldn't have done this. But Trump does illegal stuff all the time. All this sort of like skipping Congress for national security stuff. There are certain things that the Supreme Court will stand up to Trump on, but in matters of foreign policy, they basically never touch it. Moving the Overton window like a little further in the direction of presidential power, this just sets up future problems where he's going to take the specific powers outlined in this act and then expand on those.
So Trump does have this habit of exceeding his constitutional powers, right?
That's a polite way of putting it.
Right. I mean, or like that's part of his whole approach to the presidency is a maximalist view. He should do anything that he can get anybody to argue in court that he's allowed to do, and then sometimes the Supreme Court even buys it. Given that, if that's your view of Trump, then it's what do you expect him to do if China invades Taiwan anyway, right? Do you expect him to not do these things?
So first of all, I do object to the general trend of Congress ceding more and more power to the executive, like over and over again. But that's sort of a bigger discussion than this current thing, which is they should not be giving Trump more power in any way, even in seemingly small and inconsequential ways. And the crushing irony of all of these representatives spending the entire week, like calling him like the worst possible things they can think of, and then voting him more power. Like, I just can't reconcile those two positions, dude.
What if you think that he's most likely to use this power responsibly? What if you think that this is a useful and necessary thing to combat China, to defend Taiwan, whatever, to protect American interests? So maybe you think that, and you think also, most likely, he's just going to use this the way it's intended. And also, what's the harm if he abuses it? It's like, well, more corruption. Okay, I have baked into my mental model that he is unleashing massive corruption, and this probably isn't substantially worse. Like the worst abuses he could possibly do with this wouldn't be that much worse. So you compare all of that to what he's like already doing. It's like the president already has a ton of power and he's abusing all that. You're saying you shouldn't vote him any more power. Hard stop. It's like, well, I don't know if you think it's like a minor power that is actually important for a realistic scenario that he's likely to use in the intended way, and even if he abuses it, it's not going to be that bad, then maybe you should vote for it, right?
I mean, there's so much wrong with that statement, but I'll just focus in on he's likely to use it the correct way. If you think that, then you haven't been paying attention. That's nuts.
What do you mean? So there are many things that he's been misusing, but do you think like
what has he done in his term, in
what
both
has he not
terms, that
abused?
has made any sense? Like that
like
have done good for the American people aside from the billionaire class? Like fucking nothing. He's a blight on this nation that has done nothing good.
For the most part, the government has continued to function, right?
On some level, it depends on which functions you're talking about.
I mean, more so last term, right? Like they really are pursuing this agenda of slashing the government, right? This time, but certainly last time, or I mean, even this time, the Social Security checks have continued to go out, right? For example, right? Just like, for example,
programs are crumbling. Like
What?
there's so many, like I see it in my community, like so many programs are getting cut of their federal funding because shit has just stopped working. The tax base is getting cut to shreds, the deficit is piling on, the like shit is not working.
Take doing a lot of harm. I believe that, but I don't think it's a total destruction of America's government.
He hasn't totally annihilated our government. Man, what a great guy. A good president.
I'm not saying he's a great guy.
Yeah, you're right. He hasn't totally obliterated the most powerful empire in the history of the world. Yeah,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
true. He's done immeasurable damage to it, though. It is a totally mind-boggling dismantling of this system.
Here's a
That, like,
question.
one of the more stable and functional world-dominating empires in human history is ending because of Donald Trump.
Okay, well, hold on. All right, so let me give another example that you might agree with. All right, any law that Congress passes that makes something illegal would be enforced by Donald Trump's Department of Justice, right? So any law is adding more power, is granting Donald Trump and the executive branch more power to selectively enforce that law. So you guys must believe that we shouldn't be passing any new laws, right?
I mean, you can pass laws about things that aren't criminal codes.
Okay, but sorry, let's say we shouldn't pass there should be no new criminal statutes, right?
I mean, I feel like you would certainly have to make a case that it's necessary.
Well, yeah, I mean, you should do that for any criminal statute, right?
Right.
So, like, my point is, this week we talked about, I spent like 2.5 hours watching Pam Bondi. Like, I'm not a fan of the way our Department of Justice is running. For the most part, they enforce laws.
Well, sometimes, unless you pay Donald Trump.
Yeah, for the most part, they enforce laws, even today. That's mostly what they do. And any new law can be abused, so you must think no new laws should be passed, right? Because he could selectively enforce it.
I do think that.
Yes, they should function like
No laws
only
at minimal
all. Government business should be done.
They do
except
use
for
those selectively.
reining in Donald Trump.
So the Epstein Transparency Act,
is
Act
currently being used. Is currently being used.
You think it shouldn't have been
selectively.
passed? So you
That's
think it
not
shouldn't
at
have been
all
passed?
true. That doesn't give Donald Trump more power, dude. It takes
It does.
no, it does not. How does it
I
give
mean,
what power
if they
does it
get
give
to
Donald
enforce
Trump
it-
that he didn't possess before?
Well, they get to enforce it, right?
Well, okay, they already were not doing anything. It doesn't give him new power.
Well, it does. They can find some Democrat at the FBI who made a mistake in redaction and fire them on the grounds that they violated the Epstein Transparency Act, right? They can selectively prosecute.
I don't know, dude. So first of all, I think you're really reaching here. Second of all, are you just playing devil's advocate, or you're like
No,
really in
I'm
favor
not.
of this and you think it's a good idea?
Look, I don't know that much about it, but assuming that this is how this law would be written with a normal president,
But
assuming
it's
that
not a normal president, dude. So why would you act as if it is a normal president? That's what I'm saying.
I'm not acting like it is. I'm
But
just
you're saying that we should, right? You're like,
no, yeah. You're asking,
That-
am I in favor of it? And so, first of all, I'm saying I don't know jack shit about policy related to this law. So how can I be strongly in favor of it? And that's why I brought up assuming that it's a good law in normal times. That's why I said it. Not because I think it's normal times. Okay. Right.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? So assuming it's
Okay,
a good
but-
law, if
but
things were functioning normal, so then I'd say I don't really see that much harm in this.
if I were made of cheese, I would be melting right now. If you can't just your premise is already false. You can't build anything on top of it.
I'm not. Wait, no. Okay. What I'm saying is,
If your
assuming it's
premise
good
is that if it's normal
Is
times,
there,
right?
Okay, are we
That's
just
not my
stopping
premise.
you before you get to another point? Is that
I
what's
don't know.
happening?
Has he made a point? I'm desperately trying to find.
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
dude.
So try to understand it instead of refuting it, okay? Or just like you're arguing with it. Like, yes, I know the premise is not true, right? I get that. So you're missing my point if that's the argument you're making.
Okay,
right?
so what is
I'm
your
saying-
point then? Try to summarize it.
My point is, you asked, do I support this bill? My first answer is, I don't know, because I don't know anything about it, right? I mean, I read it, right? But I don't know if this makes sense if this is a good way for the executive and Congress to interact over threats to Taiwan. And what I'm saying is, well, let's say it is a good way. I'm going to assume that because if it's a bad way, then I would not be supportive of it, but I wouldn't know, right? So let's just assume that this is a sensible way for the executive and Congress to interact over policy towards China as it pertains to Taiwan. Right? Because that is a precondition of me supporting the bill. Then we can address the question of, so how is it different because Donald Trump is president? right? And I'm saying I don't think it's that different, because if he doesn't use it, it has no effect. If he does use it, then he's probably likely to use it in the intended way. And if he abuses it, the abuse is unlikely to be that severe.
Well, I guess I just fundamentally disagree, and I don't think Donald Trump should be given any more power, as he's
So
not
no-
shown that he can use it responsibly.
Right. But my point about, like, so then you must not believe that any new criminal statute should be written, right?
I was saying that only the absolute minimum of government business should be done. And beyond that, the only thing that should be done is attempting to rein in Donald Trump's power and presidential power in general, really.
And so any law grants the executive branch more power, right? And so that
could grant them
to
less
me-
power if it takes away things that they're allowed to do.
But any new criminal, like any new crime that is defined, right, is going to grant them more power.
No, like if it criminalizes previously legal activities of the executive branch, that would be taking away power.
No, but they get to enforce it.
I mean, they could ignore it theoretically.
I feel like you're essentially
could
agreeing with
selectively
my
enforce
point
it.
here that, like, we shouldn't be giving them more power, right? Because
No,
they're going to
I'm
select.
not. I'm not agreeing with your point. Your argument applies equally to any new crime that gets defined.
The Epstein Transparency Act, right? It is now a crime to not release the Epstein files, and they have been enforcing it selectively. There's sort of an interesting case here where it doesn't grant them new power necessarily. They're complying with a new requirement put on them, but they are complying with it selectively, attempting to defame certain parties within the files.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing all sorts of damage with this law, right? There's so much bad stuff to say about how they are abusing this law, misusing it, ignoring it. But would it be better if this law wasn't written just because it gives Donald Trump and the DOJ this new responsibility and the power to carry it out in whatever, like, bad faith way they are going to do it?
I do think it is an interesting example because it has been a mixed bag as a law, so it's not all positive, but I think this sort of action is generally good because it sets up all of these sort of traps for their incompetence to really carry the day on, and they've been bumbling through the whole thing. But does that apply to the Taiwan law situation?
You've dodged any sort of position here. What do you think?
Yeah, have I?
What's your position then? If you're
My position is I do think we should, I fundamentally agree with you, we shouldn't be granting any new powers to Donald Trump. I think basically the reason that the government is functioning is because America is a tough son of a bitch, and Donald Trump, as world-endingly catastrophic of a president as he is also not omnipotent. He cannot be everywhere at once. He cannot be sabotaging every single aspect of the government at once. When he turns his back, people go about their jobs and continue working.
Right.
Once he turns his Eye of Sauron on a particular issue, it turns to shit. But, eventually you look somewhere else.
I feel like it's the harm from this relative to the other harms that are being done is just not, it's not
okay,
that severe.
Sure. I was never arguing that this particular harm was especially severe. It struck me that they spent the entire week talking about what a monster he is and then voted him more power. It makes no sense to me. If you think he can't be trusted with power, you shouldn't vote him more power.
Is this power that is going to cause harm? It's like, the thing is, like power in general, right? It's like, so
okay, but so even if you can't immediately foresee how it would cause harm, why would you give him more power? There's no compelling case here.
What do you mean? I already made some. Here's one. If you think this is a useful law and that he's most likely to use it as intended, then there is a compelling case.
Then you're a fucking moron, dude.
What do you mean?
Why would you think that he's going to use it as intended?
I mean, the law says that they have to pay out Social Security checks, and they do it, right? There you go.
The law says that they have to release all the unredacted Epstein files. They didn't do it.
That's right, but
the law says Donald Trump is not allowed to accept emoluments. He did.
Right, but so the point that I'm making is that lots of laws are in fact followed, right? And if you think that that's what is going to happen with this law, then you have a fine case to go ahead and pass this law, right? You're saying there's no case. Like, well, I just made a case. There's a case.
I said there's no compelling case, and I do not find your case compelling. I find it to be utter bullshit from top to bottom.
All right.
That's like he abuses all sorts of seemingly innocuous stuff like tariffs and This is just another way to financially pressure China whenever he decides it's useful to him. It just doesn't seem like a good idea. Just more tools in the
That
toolbox.
I kind of agree. When I read it, that was the abuse that I imagined. He has on and off been doing this tariff thing with China, right? It's one more thing that he can threaten them with, and he has the power to take it away. So he's got the carrot and the stick, and it's actually power that he has. He already illegally is putting on and taking off tariffs against China all the time. That doesn't seem a material increase in the devastation that he's going to wreak on our country, and the chance that he actually responds responsibly in the case of like China invading Taiwan or blockading Taiwan. If this is actually important to him being able to do that effectively, I don't know. It seems like it makes sense. It seems like a reasonable trade-off.
Yeah, but you're saying if this and if that, and I don't think that those things are true, right? If he acts responsibly, he won't. I don't know. All right, fundamentally, I guess we just disagree. And I also just, shit like this pisses me off because I hate to see Congress continually ceding more and more power to the executive over and over again. This has been a long-term trend. I think especially one of you a few weeks ago nailed it when you said that, they all got pilloried for their Iraq war vote and now they're all afraid to do anything. And that's why they always push their power off onto the president so they don't have to take any actual responsibility for their votes. But
Must have been
basically,
David.
I want Congress to
It
do
was me.
everything that it possibly can, and the only things that they can't do are done by the president. Congress could do this act, right? International banking does not move so fast that Congress could not act if it were that important, right? There's no reason to give this power to Donald Trump. It's just completely unnecessary as far as I can tell. And I think if you want to try and vote more power to Donald Trump, you got to make a very strong case for why it's necessary, which I've not seen here personally. But if you agree with this vote, leave a comment. If you disagree, leave a comment. And that's been another friendship testing episode of Info Hazard.